Rebel Force Radio presents
Experimental Unit Clone Force 99. The defective clones with desirable mutations. They call themselves the Bad Batch.
The Bad Batch.
This is the Bad Batch After Show.
Well, I think that second episode is quite prophetic in its title, The Point of No Return, because that's what I think. I think that's where we've arrived here. Season 3, The Bad Batch. It was bound to happen at some point in a final season. But I think by the end of episode 11 here, we've reached it. The point of no return to what? No return to their Pabu. That's one, I believe. There's no going back. And I don't think there's any going back to this dream of them sort of living some normal life. I think the writing is on the wall that their return, or their certainly Omega's return, Crosshair's return, and then the Bad Batch discovering the location of Mount Tantus, and I think the incoming raid on Mount Tantus is all but a certainty here as we gear up towards the last quarter of the season, with episodes 12 through 15 way ahead of us. But we are here to talk about episodes 10 and 11, Identity Crisis and Point of No Return. Both episodes, actually, I think, very well named here. So thanks so much for being with us on the Bad Batch After Show, Rebel Force Radio, bringing you Bad Batch conversation, and it's a double batch this week. So excited to break it all down with you. If you're new to the show, introductions in order. My name is Jason, and with me, as always, my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. Yeah, it's really ramping up here with the old Bad Batch. And the point of no return, yes, indeed. I think, we're getting to that point now with the series winding down that it's a make-or-break moment for the guys and Omega. And, I think that they're in better shape than what the creators want us to believe, with Omega getting hauled off at the end. But yeah, we'll get to that. I don't want to put the cart in front of the horse. But Jason will have the tail of the tape, and we'll break down these two episodes, hopefully in order, because that's the only way I'll be able to follow along.
Yeah, well, we will definitely do it in order. So if you haven't watched episode 11 yet, you've got a little bit of time. Watch episode 11 while we're discussing episode 10, and then you'll be all caught up. We are talking about episodes 10 and 11. Episode 10, Identity Crisis, directed by Saul Ruiz, written by Amanda Rose Munoz, and story editor on pretty much, I think, the entire Bad Batch season 3, if not the whole series, Matt Miknovitz. This episode coming in at 22 minutes and 32 seconds, the original air date for both of these, April 3rd, 2024, followed immediately by Point of No Return, directed by Nate Villanueva, also written by Amanda Munoz, and Matt doing the story editing there. The second episode was a quickie. It was about 21 minutes. It was fast. So altogether, you got about 43 minutes of Bad Batch story, Jim. But unlike some of the other double and triple features that we've seen, these were two very different episodes. It wasn't like one just rolled right into the next one in terms of story. They were both telling very, very different stories. And as I said at the top, Identity Crisis, as just as aptly named as Point of No Return, because that's really where we find Emery Carr. She is having a major identity crisis here. Which path is she going to choose? Is she going to be a hero and risk her career and risk it all? Or is she going to be the villain and maintain the status quo? So all eyes on her with this first episode. This really is, I think, shaping up to be as much as her story in these later episodes as it is anyone else's.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so much so that she really dominated that episode 10, Identity Crisis, almost to the point of where, there was no Bad Batch scene in this episode at all. It was one of those rare episodes where there's no Batch. So it's like the show itself is having an identity crisis. It's called The Bad Batch, but there ain't no Batch in this episode. But that didn't set things back at all. This is all part of the big picture story that this series is telling. and Emery Carr she's caught right in the middle of it, really. We learn even more about her. Specifically, she is very dedicated to what she does. She hasn't really expressed any true ambition. Like, she never is trying to look good for the emperor or gain his favor. She's never trying to even outrank people or she just, everything she does is to step closer to scientific progress, and all in the name of her studies scientifically, as opposed to rising up in the imperial ranks and things like that.
That's a really good point, because I was going to ask, really, what is her motivation? Because yeah, she's not a bootlicker. She doesn't seem to be interested at all in the politics. There's only one moment where I think she tips her hand a bit, and that's when she's talking to Nala Se in Nala Se's holdings there in the prison cell, and she's talking about the ethics of this. She's shocked to find out that what's behind the red glow in that secret room are children, not specimens, as she's been hearing. We've heard that word, specimens. We thought maybe clone, adult clone troopers. I even thought they would be some of those Jedi in the amber, in stasis or something, and they were just pulling blood out of them and things. But no, these are living, breathing little kids in a prison, very similar to what we saw, I feel like, in Andor, actually. I think there's some similarities there. But when she says they're children like I was, she's saying this to Nala Se. She says, was your plan to discard them too? So this is a moment where we start to see, okay, maybe there's something here. Were you planning to discard them like me too? So there's a little bit of bitterness, some unfinished business. So I guess that might push her one way or the other. How is she going to handle this seeming resentment that's starting to kind of come out a little bit here against Nala Se? And the question is, if they let her go, why did they let her go? Why is she still being studied? She's a rarity just as much as Omega in terms of being a female clone. So, but that's the closest I can get to what her ambitions really are.
Yeah, I think she's committed to scientific discovery. She doesn't really show any signs of ambition, which all Imperials seem like they do. They're all trying to climb the Imperial ladder to get closer to the Emperor, to get his favor. They're all really very protective of their status within his eyes and stuff, but she doesn't appear to be that way. She appears to be dedicated to the side. So she goes to see Nala Se, and what was a pretty important exchange between the two of them, because she's searching for knowledge. She wants to know what's up with these children being brought in, and why is it necessary? And Nala Se, I don't think, really gives her many answers. I am impressed that Emery Carr is able to stay awake through the conversation with Nala Se. The way that Nala Se, oh my God. It was like listening to Nala Se speak is like verbal Valium. I just want to curl up in the corner and take a nap.
It seemed, Saul Ruiz, who was directing the episode, he may have done the voice direction as well. I'm not sure if the directors of the episodes always oversee the voice. Probably not, because I think they bank all that stuff in advance. But whoever was directing her, I feel like they hit a new, I don't know, a new monotone with this particular performance. She was really drawing every word.
Yeah, it was noticeable. I mean,
maybe she is drugged up though in that prison. Who knows?
Oh, she's drugged up.
She could be.
Yeah. I didn't even think of that.
Can you imagine a Camino on speed or like on caffeine? Imagine what that would be. I guess they would speak at a normal pace.
Right. But these characters and their species were accustomed to hearing them speak, going all the way back to Attack the Clones. But I did notice something maybe a little more deliberate in the delivery by Gwendolyn Yao. Is that how you say her last name? Yao? I
believe
heard
so.
a big difference in the delivery there. Yeah, I believe she voices Nala Se.
Yeah, think about it. I mean, some of these voice actors, they've been, Stephen Stanton shows up with Tarkin, which was great. But I mean, some of these voice actors have been with these characters for decades now, doing their voices, the ones that go back, to the Clone Wars and stuff. So naturally, these things may evolve, but it just stuck out to me. I think it stuck out to you too. Just one of those things. But yeah, so Nala Se not really giving much information as you mentioned, but there was another little line that she said to Emery Carr, and I could be reading too much into it. That's what we do when we're talking about these Star Wars and these episodes. But Emery has kind of in fact, Nala calls her Emery. So there's a familial thing. She calls her by her first name. She doesn't call her Dr. Carr or anything like that. And she puts it on Emery. She says, "What will you do, Emery?" And she says, "There's nothing I can do. I don't have that kind of power." And she says, "Don't you?" I just thought the word power was interestingly used here. What power does she mean? Why didn't she say authority or something like that? She said power. And again, maybe I'm reading into it, but is there something there with perhaps some abilities that perhaps Emery might possess that could be latent? Is that why she was, quote unquote, abandoned, just kind of scurried into the science core? Like, nothing to see here. She's just gifted in science, and let her go on and she'll be my assistant or she'll work in the labs. Perhaps she was hidden in plain sight.
Wow, that's an interesting thought. I kind of interpret it as meaning like power of resolve, free will. She's someone who can make a difference, as opposed to having some sort of inbred function or ability to be able to use a power, like a legitimate power.
Right.
Might be
Especially
in the Star Wars universe. Power. Maybe, but that is an interesting little bit of dialogue that definitely jumped out to you a little bit more profoundly than I think it did me.
Yeah. I think Star Wars has a history when they talk about power, when they use that unlimited power.
For sure.
It just elicits a different thing. But you're right. It could be the strength of character, the strength of resolve to do what is right. Because I think at the end of the day, whether it's through some sort of power or anything, she's telling Emery that she has the ability to make the right decision, and that she knows what is right.
Yes. And she may know that on a personal level too. She may know that her moral center is good, that she has standards, she has morals. She's not like a lot of these cold-hearted, cruel Imperials who are only driven by their motivation to achieve and climb that Imperial ladder.
Well, the only reason I think that an Emery Carr or an Omega exists is if we go back to season 1, there were clues and things that we gleaned from those earlier episodes that showed, and in fact, it might have actually been explicitly said in an episode, but at least in my memory, there's the understanding that these clones exist because the Kaminoans did not trust the Empire to keep their word. They thought that now that the Clone Wars were over, that they were going to be thrown to the wayside and destroyed, perhaps like the Geonosians and others that had aided the Republic during the Clone Wars. Well, the Geonosians didn't, but that were betrayed inevitably by the Empire. So
they were trying to stay a few steps ahead of the Emperor, and that usually doesn't bode well for anyone in the galaxy far, far away. They usually get burned. You can't out evil the Emperor or outthink him for that matter. He's always pulling the strings and several steps ahead of everyone else.
So Hemlock has a problem. And the problem is that things are not progressing now that Nalase is confined. Nalase is in jail. He cannot trust her, and he needs her. And it seems like the next best hope for him is Carr, but she's the one that sort of suggests it. She says, hey, how about me? I can step in and I can do this. And
put me in, coach.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought it was interesting how, like, maybe he was anticipating this because he accepts it. Like, how many times do you go to your boss and say, I'd really like that promotion? And they go, great, let me give you the lowdown here. So it's called Project Necromancer. It's very important to the Emperor. So, I mean, he just kind of spills the beans, but he's still guarded. He doesn't lay it all out there. He doesn't say, well, the Emperor is a Sith Lord, and his hope is that he will somehow mystically control a clone body that is force sensitive. Obviously, he doesn't say all that. In fact, we may not, Hemlock himself may not even know how far this goes in terms of Palpatine's ambitions.
He just knows what Palpatine. He just knows what Palpatine wants.
Right.
He doesn't know what Palpatine's going to use it for.
Right.
He's not quite there. And Carr she's kept in the dark. She's kept in the dark. And now she's having these revelations when she goes into the vault, sees the specimens, and it's a shock to her system. And she's being kept in the dark by, about a lot of things still at this point, because even Cad Bane picks up on it when she says, where did this child come from? And Cad says, asking questions like that, you give away more than you think. You're just showing your ignorance. Your ignorance is on
that was a great
display
line.
here.
Yeah.
It was a great line.
Yeah.
And he summed her up with that one line while just, toying with his toothpick there for a second. And then Cad Bane and Crosshair both chew on toothpicks. Could they be the same person? See, I'm going to start that one. Crosshair is Cad Bane, or Cad Bane is Crosshair.
All right, new YouTube video.
Yeah, it's coming.
Scoop.
It's coming.
From RFR. Cad Bane and Crosshair.
Stand in front of a dartboard and deliver the news.
Yeah. Yeah, it was great to see. It was great to see Cad Bane again. And I got to say, he's one of the more entertaining characters that shows up. I want to get to him here in a minute, but getting back real quick to Carr and in Hemlock, the way he justifies the use of children when she questions him, there's a couple of good tidbits here. Why kids? Why not adults? And he's like, well, there are few adults with such characteristics left these days. So obviously the purge is in full swing, and they've pretty much taken out any adult with these high midichlorian counts and typically an adult who has a high midichlorian count coming out of the Republic would have been aware, would have had training, would have most likely become a Jedi, except in some maybe very rare instances. And so when he talks about children, they're easier to attain, which is horrible. Kidnapping children, it's easier. All we got to do is kidnap the children. They obviously don't fight back very hard, and they're more agreeable to their subjugations. They're unaware of why they're here and what they possess. To me, it sounded like he was talking about clones in some way.
A little bit, yeah.
And that might have stuck in her craw, because it's very slavish, and the clones we know were more docile in their nature and more easier to control, and they didn't know any other different life because they were born and raised there. So I thought that kind of showed some prejudice that might have stuck or hit close to home with her.
Yeah, and I mean, Hemlock probably does look at clones and these children, aka specimens, in the same way. I mean, he only refers to the kids as specimens or scientific assets.
Yeah,
they're not even people to him, and this shocks Emery Carr. And you'll notice throughout the episode when she says specimen, she does a little brief pause almost every time. She'll be like, "This specimen is younger than I expected. She pauses because she naturally wants to call it a child.
Right.
She has to hesitate so she can keep her words straight so she doesn't drift off track and, apparently reveal a weakness that she has, which is, very sisterly or mother. She's got this matronly edge to her.
Mhm.
And we saw it earlier in the season when she returned that little handmade doll to Omega just to comfort the child, However, part of me also doesn't want to overdo this. She's giving the children the child just the little Tuca doll just to make them more relaxed. That might be her goal right there because it's easier to deal with kids when they're not screaming and crying. Toto himself says, "I'm not a nanny droid," but discovers that giving the doll to the child will get the kid to stop crying. And he seemed pretty proud of himself too. He's like, "Oh, it worked. Hey, look at me. Look what I did," but it's not like he was doing it out of any sort of comforting. He wasn't trying to comfort.
No.
He was just trying to satisfy Cad Bane's demands to keep that kid quiet.
Yeah.
So he did. So, I mean, maybe Emery is, but I think there's more with Emery. I think there is more of a matronly edge to what she's doing and her respect for the children. Because she says, flat out to Nala, hey, these kids shouldn't be here. They should not be here. And Nalase agrees, but says there's nothing she could do. She just wanted to protect Omega.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I see.
I don't know how that came in with the kids though. When she brings up, she says, "I just wanted to protect Omega." So it's like she didn't even care about those kids. She just wanted to protect Omega. She was very focused.
Well, and that's another thing that could be causing a little bit of resentment from Emery. So I'm trying to look at all sides, like what's going to push her to the edge. I do think we're going to find out that Emery is bitter about her upbringing, and I wonder if there's a little jealousy here that, everyone's just trying to protect Omega. What about me? I'm a female clone. I'm unique. I'm special. I'm different. But I'm just out here, working in the labs while everyone is, losing themselves over Omega. So I don't know if there's something to that possibly. But getting back to Cad Bane, I was reminded, of course, one of my favorite episodes of the Clone Wars, just because I remember at the time, Jim, we thought it was so wacky. The Children of the Force episode where we saw Cad Bane kidnapping Force-sensitive children way back then. So Palpatine has been doing this for a while. This is nothing new.
Right. But see, I felt like it was more implied in the Clone Wars when Cad Bane or Palpatine was collecting these kids and they even showed him walking around in the nursery. It was real creepy. But I thought he was like nurturing, future apprentices or trying to build a Sith army or something crazy like that. I wasn't under the impression that he had those children to experiment on them or to draw their blood. Hey, let's talk about blood.
I think at the time though, real quick, we thought that they were future Inquisitors. That
could
was
have been
the use of those kids.
Yeah, that gets brought up in season 1 of Rebels as well.
Right.
But it appears that these children are where they're taking the blood from to see if it's compatible with blood from clones. They're looking for just the right clone so they can make the blood compatible with their DNA. And I think we finally get the answer on Omega in this exchange when Hemlock says he's talking about Omega. He says the young clone's blood is the only binder that's proven to be compatible with their DNA, meaning the kids.
Yeah.
To recreate their M count levels. So either Omega does not have a high M count rate, or we are totally misunderstanding what they mean by M in M count. I think we think it means midichlorians, and I still stand by that. But if that is the case, then Omega doesn't have a high M count rate because they're not able to recreate the M count levels of children with just her blood alone. She needs the infusion.
Yes, that's why I'm telling you, I don't think that Omega is going to prove to be force sensitive. I don't think that that's what this is about. They're pretty explicit here. Omega's blood is the only binder that's proven to be compatible with their DNA to recreate their M count levels. The there that they're talking about are the actual high midichlorian count specimens. These younglings that would have otherwise been Jedi. I think that's the they that they're talking about. So her blood is a bonding agent.
Yes. And if Omega already had the high M count, she'd be in there with those kids.
Yes. Yep.
She'd be in the vault.
Or would they just have their answer? All they got to do is just clone Omega. Right. And they could skip to the chase. So yeah, yes. I'm with you. That to me was like, okay, proof. I mean, how many times do we have to be hit over the head with this? Asajj Ventress said she's not force sensitive. By the way, speaking of Asajj Ventress, she's a bounty hunter. Certainly she doesn't have the resources that Cad Bane does. Cad Bane is testing the blood of that little kitty cat thing like right away. Todo, the test, and he's like, oh, yes, sir. And they test, and yep, it's good. And it gets tested again because, they can't trust Cad Bane's device. It could be loaded. It could be a fake. But I just thought, wow, Cad Bane tests that blood like it's nothing. And Asajj Ventress is having her, Omega put apples on her head and standing on logs to see what her M count is.
True. But as you said earlier, Cad's been doing this for a long time. He's been snatching up these kids for a while. And so
he's got the tools.
Yeah, he had enough box tops to turn them in and get the M counts counter or the temperature reader or whatever it is, thermometer, the M count thermometer.
Oh, how cute!
That's
the
little thing I can think of.
Yeah.
Oh, this little guy. Yeah. Oh, I felt so terrible.
Oh, wasn't that terrible to watch?
This little cat. Was he a cat pig or something?
I don't know.
Little cat pig.
Cat pig? Not in this episode. No, lots of cat pigs in this episode. Well, he's got the little doll. He had a name, or she had a name. I'm not sure, but it's Bairn. Bairn was the little. I just said cat baby. To me, it looked like a cat, but I guess it kind of has a little pig face, 4 ears.
And it was. I did some research on the species.
Oh yeah.
They're called Tarlifar. That's the species, and they were actually first introduced in Solo. The one we see in Solo is played by Warwick Davis, and Warwick, he's there watching the card game with Lando and Han, and when Han wins, he goes over. The little cat pig goes over to Han Solo and shakes his hand. You can see him right there in the shot. I went back and looked at Solo today just to see the handshake, but that's who he is. He's a Tarlifar. And the Tarlifar that Warwick played in Solo's name was Whamoth. Because, of course, Warwick Davis can only play characters whose names begin with the letter W.
It's in my contract. Only W names. That's all I can do.
It's canon.
So this is just the latest in Cad Bane's history of kidnapping children. And, you'd think with a guy like Cad Bane, who has proven to be extraordinarily capable of handling himself, he's a real badass. You would just think that kidnapping kids would be beneath him, that he would, you kind of want him to be kind of like that type of tough guy that wouldn't do such stuff. But boy, it just makes him really evil, and just a total whatever for the money. This is not a character I think we'll ever see with any redeeming qualities in Star Wars. I don't think there's any redemption for Cad Bane.
Well, I think that it might even be more difficult to snatch a child away from their family. I mean, a mother, she didn't get the chance in this episode. But the mother, usually some mothers are capable of exhibiting superhuman strength when their
Right.
children are in danger.
Mama
And
bear strength.
I mean, right, but she never got the chance because Cad shot her at point blank range. And the first time I saw the episode, I didn't realize that was a stun blast. And I was like, geez, Cad, really? I mean, the mom right in front of the baby, it just said point blank range, you kill her like that? But no, it was a stun blast.
Oh,
I
that-
went back and watched it a second time.
That would be too
but-
much, even though this show is really, it's an animated show, but this show gets dark, man. It gets real dark. This is
That would be real dark.
This is not kiddie time.
Yeah.
But even they
So,
wouldn't go that far.
No, they wouldn't go that far. And also so Cad got the tip about this weird kid who's capable of tossing a vase, several meters. So that walrus man goes to the comm channels and apparently calls the bounty hunter guild, and they dispatch Cad Bane to go find the kid. And when he goes, thanks for the tip, and he tosses some credits at the Aqualish, and the Aqualish is like, what a cheap ass, it seemed like to me that he got much less than he thought he would get for turning over one of his neighbor's children. Well, I think he was expecting a bigger payday.
Well, the other thing that kind of cracked me up about this was like, he knew exactly what to ask for. He's like, get me a class 1 bounty hunter, because I know that only class 1 bounty hunters can take care of these high midichlorian count kids. It just seemed really like, why couldn't he just, I don't know. It was a little too much for me, a little too on the nose there. Looking for a class 1 bounty hunter. Don't send me one of those class 2s.
Yeah, right. And now, so this has become a thing, the class 1 bounty hunter.
Yes.
It's become a thing as of this season of the Bad Batch. And we heard Asajj being referred to as a class 1. And now we learned that Cad is. So from now on, whatever we hear, a class 1 bounty hunter is being dispatched, we'll have that argument for a week over who it's going to be, and the debate and stuff. And it's got to be Bosk. No, it's Dengar. I just know it. And then
I want to see the rankings for the rest of them. I want to. Who's the class 2s and the 3s?
You have to get this year's bounty hunter trading cards and look at the statistics on the back. And you'd be like, right. Oh, Greedo was good, but he's definitely not in his class 1 years anymore. He's kind of lost. Right. I loved him when he was class 1. Now that he's class 3,
it's embarrassing. Why doesn't he just retire?
I keep expecting a comeback, but it doesn't appear he cares anymore. And, he's kind of slipped out of shape a little bit.
Yeah.
These are the debates we'd be having.
Oh, this is going to be great as we age as Star Wars fans. We're going to be in my class 1 days. By the way, this is a call-in show, 708-866-1737. Please get in the queue. Our call screener, our official program observer, Tyler Page, is standing by. And he is ready to take your calls, complete with his socks hat today.
Call in.
Tyler? Yeah, call in, 708-866-1737. Let Tyler know what you want to talk about, and we'll pop you on. And don't forget that if you are a Patreon member, we will let you jump to the head of the line. The head of the line. All right, Jim, we should talk about what's these kids that Emery Carr sort of finds herself, I guess, kind of being nursemaid to. These kids weren't in the credits. That's something I noticed too. So you've got little Eva. Were they in the credits, or maybe they were in the credits by their specimen name? I didn't see Jax was not in the credits. Eva wasn't in the credits.
Well, that's a good question. I'm going to try to pull up the credits.
Yeah, I didn't see them. But Ava is an Itachi girl, so kind of like a Seisei Tin type, and she's really, the principal kid in this jail. There's a Pantoran that you see briefly, but she doesn't have any lines. And then there's Jax, and Jax is a Maryland boy. He's like a Jolly Green Giant type. That's what I thought he looked. I thought he looked like the friggin' Jolly Green Giant. There's a better shot of him here, but so Eva, you got something?
Well, it appears that they are credited, 2 of the 3 kids. I don't think the blue girl spoke.
No, she didn't. So she's not in there.
She was the smart one of the 3 of them. She kept her damn fool mouth shut. But they're credited by their Imperial code names.
Okay.
SP-54, who would be Eva,
right,
is played by Olwyn M. Whalen. And SP-32, who is good old Jax, was played by a kid named Ivan Sinitsin.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So
now this was probably one of the larger.
Just a green kid, blue kid. That would have been easy. Especially the SP names. I wonder what SP stands for.
Specimen.
That's got to be it.
I think I cracked the code.
Yeah.
What did I win?
Yeah. Specimen. Mm-hmm.
But little Eva, she's a heartbreaker. All she wants is to go home, and they think they're going home. This is like the prisoners in Andor that they think they're being released, and it turns out they're not being released. They're just being transferred to another part of the prison. So this is sort of the MO here of Imperial imprisonment. You keep them thinking that there's a possibility of getting out, so you stay motivated, because if you knew that you was no way you were ever getting out, you'd just be like, who cares? Screw it. I'm just going to lay here. Shoot me. Go ahead. I don't care. So I think they keep them deliberately with some of that hope. And but we know that it's not happening. Even when Jax tries to escape, he just can't handle it anymore, and he goes running for the control panel, and it all goes red. It just seemed very reminiscent to me of what we saw in Andor.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Definite Andor vibes. And also, Emery Carr, this is the second time this season her iPad got stolen from her. She's got to keep a tighter grip on that.
I hope she has Apple Care on that.
Yeah, right. And she doesn't lock it. She doesn't have a code on it. It's just, anyone can grab it and look at her email and,
You don't want people reading your text messages either. That's embarrassing.
No, you don't. So, but yeah, her data pad stolen a second time. So she's going to build up a reputation as somebody who cannot be trusted with Imperial equipment.
Yeah, she can't handle the gear. Fingers. So Jax makes a run for it. He's unsuccessful, and in come not just some clone troopers, but clone commandos come bursting through the door with blasters drawn. Emery tries to prevent this by saying, hey, I've got everything under control. This is unnecessary. And they stun him anyway. And he's out for several days, it seems like.
Yeah.
And
they put him in isolation for 2 rotations. And look at this kid. He looks like, remember when the Jolly Green Giant had a son named Sprout?
Yes.
That's what I'm thinking of when I look at this kid. Oh, ho, ho.
Green Giant. Yeah. So he wasn't so lucky. Obviously he's there to illustrate to us as the viewers is what happens when you try to escape. You're made an example of. And but she says little Eva is like she's so concerned about Jax. Is he going to be in trouble? No, he's not in trouble. You'll see him tomorrow. And I think Eva knows better. Then she finds out that he's not going to be around for a couple of days. And she says to Emery, "You're a liar. You are a liar. You lied to me about Jax."
Stings.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the kids obviously had some sort of relationship with Nala Se. She, obviously with that soothing voice of hers, she keeps you in check just by merely speaking to you. because it's so calming and relaxing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they get the same from Emery. And, but I just find it interesting. Nalase was going to find out when the kids would be released and sent home, which we know is never going to happen.
Right.
But was Nalase actually working on their behalf, or was she just blowing smoke at them by saying that just to end the conversation? Ava certainly believed so. She thought that Nalase was going to come back with that information.
Yeah.
And now, she's left with Emery, who in her eyes is a big liar.
Yeah.
Yeah. The whole thing's falling to pieces here.
Yeah. And you can tell because Ava asks Emery, where is Nalase? Where's Nalase? So there's, and the way she says it implies that, she misses her, like that Nalase probably had, like you say, a more maternal relationship with the kids. And I guess you could probably assume that that maternal streak in her probably evolved over time. She might have been all business at the beginning of this, but just kid after kid after kid, and the treatment they get just wears you down, plus the attachment that she formed with Omega. So she I'm guessing that she kind of softened over the years. And when she saw, and who knows, maybe she knows more than even Hemlock in terms of what the ultimate goal is. The Kaminoans, I think, are pretty smart people, and I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if we find out that she knows even more than. Well, we don't know what Hemlock knows. We were talking about perhaps he doesn't know the end game of Palpatine in terms of possession of an army of clone bodies, but maybe Nalase does, and that's partially what's turned her. These kids.
Yeah. It's hard to say. I don't believe Nalase would know more than Hemlock, but the way that the Emperor works things behind the scenes and distributes information to, only a select few, and others are more privileged than some. He's pretty cagey about all that stuff.
Yeah.
But to really, for Nalase to really understand, it would have to be steeped in the science of it all. And if she discovered the Emperor was trying to create some sort of bioweapon or some sort of like super soldier that has its DNA manipulated by midichlorians, I don't know how she could be someone who would comply with what he wants, even if she's the only person who knows how to do it. I mean, what do they really have on her to get her motivated anyway? They destroyed Kamino and everyone she knows. Omega has been on the lam since the beginning of the season. So, I mean, so naturally, Nalase is not complying. She's not working with them, and they put her in a cell because they have no leverage.
Exactly.
They have no upper hand with her.
Right.
So, meanwhile, you have Hemlock who's spending the Emperor's cash like it's, pouring water out of a pitcher, and that gets Tarkin concerned.
Yes,
Tarkin gets concerned in a great cameo. And boy, oh boy, this episode, it's just chock full of great cameos that cover the spectrum of Star Wars storytelling. You have Nalase from the prequels, Tarkin from the OT, Scorch from the video games, and Cad Bane from the Clone Wars. It's like it's really scratching a lot of itches this episode with all these great cameos. It was really great to see Tarkin, and you get to see how he's fueled by his ambition. It's much more than just a matter of the books. He's not just upset because the budget. He's mad because he's being kept out of something, and the Emperor is withholding information from Tarkin, and he's favoring Hemlock over Tarkin in this situation and distributing information and funds to Hemlock and not Tarkin. And boy, oh man, this gets Tarkin. This really gets him. It hits a nerve with him, and he's going to make life miserable for Hemlock if Hemlock doesn't start coughing up results as opposed to just
he threatens
spending.
But the question is, Jim, can Tarkin in this instance? We're not talking about the Death Star here. We're talking about Palpatine's very survival. Does Tarkin really have, we talked about leverage a minute ago, does he really have any leverage over Hemlock here? Or is he just, running out of ammo and throws the gun at him and just makes these idle threats about, you'd better hope so. If this project fails to yield proper results, it won't bode well for your operation, when he knows damn well that this is, super deep black ops, and it has the direct authorization and support of the Emperor.
True. The one way that Tarkin, so you're saying Tarkin's bluffing.
I think Tarkin is, in this instance, yes. Yeah.
And Tarkin doesn't like to do that. He likes to have some firepower at his disposal. And he knows that if Hemlock keeps spending all of this money on this top secret operation that Tarkin knows nothing about, then he's taking funds away from the Death Star, which is what Tarkin needs. Tarkin needs that firepower.
Right.
He needs I would Tarkin putting his money where his mouth is.
Yes, I would say I would broaden the scope of that and say not just the Death Star, but military. He wants military spending out the wazoo in these pet projects, especially these ones that are costing so much money, and not just costing money, but the fallout, if they ever would become public knowledge, would be catastrophic for the Empire that still, I think, holds on to some goodwill across the vast galaxy that think, oh, there's finally order and peace.
Right.
So, yeah, he definitely is aware of the costs, not just financial, but also political and all that.
It's interesting to see Star Wars storytelling taking place during this era, which is roughly a couple of years after Palpatine established the Empire. Still far away from having the firepower they need to keep all the systems in line. They have the manpower, apparently, for the most part, but they don't have that one touch of a button firepower that would silence everyone and everything and make a grand statement. That's what Tarkin is trying to chase, and he's still about 18 years away from it at this point.
Yeah.
So it's, he's got a long road ahead of him, Tarkin, and many more bluffs to make, many more hollow threats to throw out there at other officers just to maintain his edge before he finally does get that Death Star, which is what he really needs.
I like the way this exchange between the two of them, because he says he's talking about the money, and he says. He asks, which is what is the project? And he says, oh, I'm afraid that's classified. And then he's like, well, perhaps there is some assistance I may provide. Maybe you need me, He wants to get his
all
I need is the money. What's that?
He wants to get his beak wet,
right?
Is what he wants.
Yeah. And he's like, no, I just need the money. And that's when he's like, well, you better hope that you get results on this, because if you don't, it's going to mean bad things. We do have some super chats. When we get to those, we're going to jump into the next episode here in a moment in our conversation. But this first episode, I loved it. I thought that it was very, very bold in the storytelling. It was giving us, I think, a lot of a definitive look at this operation. I don't feel that they're holding anything back, or they're not holding anything back of vital importance for us to be able to enjoy. And we're still having lots of speculation. I know when we were, voicing some issues and complaints with other series, Ahsoka notably, where it felt like everything was being held back. All character motivations, backstory, history was being held back. And people are, oh, well, if you know all that stuff, it's no longer fun to talk about. I find it just as fun, in fact, more satisfying to talk about when you have answers, like real answers, because now you have something to talk about, because otherwise it's all speculation. I felt like that's all we did with Ahsoka was just speculate. We had nothing to really grab onto.
Well, the big problem with Ahsoka is that the characters all knew everything and we knew nothing as an audience. Right. At least with the Bad Batch, we're going through discovery as the Bad Batch does, as Omega does, and now Emery Carr is beginning to discover things. So, sure, some characters know the big story, like Hemlock. I mean, Hemlock knows things Tarkin doesn't even know. Mm-hmm. So everyone wants to find this stuff out, and we can walk in lockstep with the characters as they experience this. Thus, we're experiencing it through them as a proxy. And we don't get that with Ahsoka because the characters all know everything, and the audience knows nothing. And that's the type of stuff that really frustrated me with Ahsoka. Yeah. I don't like that kind of storytelling. I think it's very ineffective. No matter how long you've been a fan or how long you've been following this stuff, you still need a solid story to be presented to you. We can't be doing all the work for these guys, filling in all their blanks.
Right.
And we still have that one that's hanging out there with season 3, and that's Crosshair's damn hand. Now it's been forgotten. They obsess over it for the first half of the season, and then now all of a sudden he's shooting pilots from the ground. And
but he didn't hit the money shot. He missed the most important shot.
Yeah, but that's placement of a tracker. That's not being a sniper necessarily. That's kind of a different deal.
He had a big-ass target to hit. I feel like I could have made that shot. That's a big-ass ship he was shooting at with that.
As he said, too many variables.
Yeah, no, I actually rewound that a couple of times because I was thinking the same thing as you, Jim. Like, is this the shaky hand syndrome? But what it looked to me was that it wasn't enough distance. I don't feel like he missed the ship as much as he just didn't run fast enough to get the shot out, and the ship was already too far away. It wasn't a miss. I agree.
It would have been there, if the ship wasn't moving.
Right, and he'd have been a little faster, maybe.
Yeah, that's what those variables, Right. I mean, his shot itself was the right size, but the wrong shape. Yeah. It just didn't connect. But it didn't look like he wasn't being accurate. He got everything he could out of trying to place that tracker.
Yeah.
But, if we're jumping to the end of the episode, is there no tracker? Or, what do you think? I think there is. I think Omega's packing a comm link. She got scanned when she turned herself over. The comm link was found. Right. She surrenders it.
Correct.
But then no more scanning. They were only like halfway done with the scan. She could have had that thing anywhere on her. And I thought when she took her hat off, she was going to pull out a comm link out of that or something.
No, it's a great question. And I'll tell you, when this episode was over, I thought if this was going into a fourth season, that would have been the season finale. Like that cliffhanger is season finale worthy, because then you're questioning, does she or doesn't she have another tracker? I think we're led to believe she doesn't, but I don't think it's anywhere near conclusive, because the discussion that she has with Crosshair, she says, well, I have a tracker. They'll find the tracker. And then she says, well, you can track the ship. You can put a tracker on the ship. But it felt like it was left open, or like maybe we weren't thinking about, maybe the tracker she surrendered wasn't the tracker that they were referring to, that they were talking about, she and Crosshair. I don't know, but I think there's still hope.
Well, they said comlink. They said comlink specifically. So she can call them.
You're right.
And say, come get me at these coordinates. It's like calling for an Uber when you have one of those things. They know where you are, based on the GPS. And she, they found the one, but I think she has another one on her. I think she has a burner comm link on her somewhere.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe she just has a pager.
Because when she takes her hat off, when she takes her hat off at the end, she sort of exhales. It's almost like, whew, I got away with it. That's what I was thinking.
I thought she was going into meditation. Like,
oh yeah, she's going to reach out with the Force, maybe.
Yeah, well, or just meditation. We've seen her do the the Gunji meditation.
Oh,
she
that's
does it
true.
With Crosshair.
Yeah. The Wookiee style.
So the lines are, the dialogue here, we've been trying to find those coordinates and nothing's worked. But if I keep my comm on me and turn myself over, you can track me to Tantus. This is our chance to finally rescue the clones imprisoned here. No, they'll search you and find it. It won't work. Well, then shoot a secondary tracker onto the ship that they take me away in. Too many unknown variables. It's not a viable plan. It's the only plan we've got. So they reference two things, but Jim, I don't think the door is closed on the possibility of there being another. And maybe it's something that Crosshair doesn't even know about.
I think she's packing two of them. I think one of them was a decoy. And notice, I mean, they found it on her. I mean, they didn't even check out her lower body or anything. She could have had something shoved in her shoe or somewhere, but they pull out that one and then they pull her away. So I think she's pulling a little sleight of hand with these guys.
She very well may be, and we know she's super smart and very, very cunning. Let's get into our super chats here. We got Adam. Adam says, wow, Clone Commando's gone full Empire. Yeah, it looks like it. Even blasting innocent children. Thanks for the super chat. Salvi Crum says, I'll admit it, I was waiting for Grogu to pop up in that special detention area. Here's what I think, and here's how I think this relates to Grogu, and the only way that it relates to Grogu is I think that Omega is sort of the original Grogu. I think Grogu, because let's face it, I mean, Palpatine, if Omega is the answer to what Palpatine needs, it's not going to take 30 some years for it to all, climax into the era of the sequel trilogy. So the Omega plan, as we could call it, is not going to work. It's not the thing that is going to get Palpatine cloned on Exegol. But it could be the prototype for what later they need Grogu for, perhaps. Perhaps Grogu is some sort of hybrid that we'll find out, perhaps a clone, not a full clone, but maybe a clone human or clone, whatever the heck his species is, a clone Yoda, a clone Yoda hybrid of some sort. I don't know, but I think that Omega is sort of the prototype idea for what later they do with Grogu.
Oh, I never considered Grogu to be some sort of clone of Yoda. Didn't they rule out him being a clone?
He's not a strand cast, meaning that he's not a clone that has been genetically modified, but perhaps he is the child of a clone and a non-clone. Like
because,
Rey. If we believe the story of Rey, that she is the child of a clone and a non-clone. So they can,
Yeah. I just don't know if, the Jedi had access to cloning technology at the time Grogu was born, if he's 50 years old.
But maybe he wasn't, born by the Jedi. Maybe he was found by the Jedi. And they thought, oh my gosh, this has got midichlorians off the charts. I don't know. I definitely don't believe that the Jedi were responsible for cloning him or him coming into the world. And it may not have been anything nefarious. It could have been just legit. A clone existed out there. But you're right, though. Who cloned Yoda? If Grogu is the offspring of a clone of Yoda and a non-clone, I mean, unless Yoda got so sick of...
Grogu's an offspring of a clone of Yoda? This is getting very complicated.
Well, you know what? Yaddle just nagged and nagged and nagged in the Jedi Temple, and Yoda had no choice but to clone himself, like Michael Keaton in that movie, just to deal with Yaddle. Like, you go deal with Yaddle, and then Yaddle and clone Yoda. Cloda.
Yeah, he just made one Yoda for listening to her.
Right.
Yeah, that's it.
Maybe
clone that Yoda with slightly larger ears, or maybe smaller ears, depending on how much he can withstand the nagging.
Yeah. So, but the pram, or a pram-like device, does show up with Cad Bane and the baby. It wasn't total pram egg shaped, but it reminded me of the pram.
I'd even think of that, but yeah, that box that they put the little pig cat into,
the trialpha or whatever you said the species was, Tarlafar.
Tarlafar. It's a Tarlafar. Yeah.
Salvi Crumb again says, I'll admit it, I was waiting. Oh, sorry, we just did that. Come on. Carlos from the OC says, Tarkin is the Empire's CPA. Go RFR. Yeah, he's just an accountant at this point. He's not even a Grand Moff. He's still a governor. Yeah.
Yeah, he does it all, doesn't he? His favorite days are when he works in HR. Those are his favorite days. He covers all the bases. He runs the place.
I will do your taxes.
Boy, Tarkin doing my taxes. Jeez, I better get a hefty refund,
Oh, you would hope, right? I mean, you wouldn't want necessarily to be caught by Tarkin doing anything shady or underhanded. All right.
No, I'd want him to do the shady underhanded.
Oh, I see. So that you'd get a bit. Oh, so you get the big refund. Yeah.
Yeah, I want the big refund.
You want the dishonest accountant for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Because then you can be like, I had no idea. What am I, an accountant? Carnegie 77 says, liked seeing the evil version of Baby Yoda's pram. Yeah, that's right. That's kind of what that was. Thanks for the super chat. David says, Tales of the Empire trailer. I got to confess, I haven't watched it yet. Had a busy day. We're focused here on Bad Batch, but next week, Rebel Force Radio, the weekly podcast, we will have full coverage of the Tales of the Empire trailer. I don't mean to blow you off, David. I appreciate the super chat very much, but no spoilers, please. I'll watch it after the show tonight. Tanya says, as the series approaches the final episodes, the fate of Clone Force 99 is a tragic inevitability. I am not ready for it.
I don't think I am either.
Jim, I mean, the episode leaves you with Wrecker unconscious, Hunter nearly drowned, and Crosshair missing the big money shot at the end. So definitely a low moment for the whole batch, and Omega in captivity.
Right. But it's all part of the plan. At least Omega's got a plan. She's the only one who really is in a position where she feels confident as she's being taken away on an Imperial gunship to Tantus.
She's like Thrawn.
She's feeling okay.
She's everything according to plan.
It's all happening according to plan, of course. I'm supposed to be in prison right now. It's all good. I feel good. But Wrecker, he's out cold.
Yeah.
And he's going to wake up and go, oh, these headaches are back. Ah! Remember season 1? He was always getting those headaches.
Season 1 headaches since season 1.
Oh.
John David, I think he's referring to something you said earlier, Mac. He said, if I had a quarter every time I heard right size, wrong shape, I'd have a quarter. Thanks, John. John's here just about each and every week. We appreciate it. Okay, we do have some calls. We could use some more, so light it up. We do have some room on the switchboard, 708-866-1737. That is the number to call. Let's go ahead and kick things off with, we got Patreon and a first-time caller. Let's talk to, make sure they can hear us here. Let's talk to Carrie from Kentucky. Carrie, you're on with Rebel Force Radio. Thanks for waiting.
Hi, Carrie.
Chut. Hey, guys.
Hey, how you doing?
Hello. Doing well, thanks.
What's on your mind?
Well, I haven't heard it yet. I haven't heard anybody mention yet the interesting imagery with Omega and Luke Skywalker. So I just wanted to bring that out and see what kind of discussion you guys could generate from that. A couple things I saw.
Yeah, tell us what you saw.
Well, what I saw in the last episodes, when Omega surrendered, Luke surrendered to face the Emperor. So Omega surrendered to save everybody there, and ultimately face the Empire. Previously, I saw this. For me, when Asajj Ventress was testing Omega, it seemed like it reminded me of Yoda with Luke. He was balancing and he'd lose concentration and the rocks would fall. And she was on the slippery surface, but sort of similar. And then it was in a cave. Asajj Ventress sort of reminded me of Luke. Seeing himself when the helmet split open, was she seeing in the sort of weird imagery Asajj Ventress as, you're important to this whole effort. Don't turn out like I could have been. I'm trying to maybe, do better for myself as Asajj Ventress. And then what does that mean? The bigger picture, the big question, is Omega really force sensitive yet? Do we know? Do we really know that she is not force sensitive?
Well, I don't.
So those are some of the thoughts.
We were saying it earlier. I don't think we know for sure. I don't think it's conclusive. I think there's enough clues for me to make the assumption that she is not. We were sort of breaking down Hemlock's description of why Omega is so important, and it doesn't sound like Omega. They have high M count specimens. What they don't have is clone blood that can withstand a transfusion or a mixture of with these midichlorians that can hold on to it, of the bonding agent as they talk about. That's what they don't have.
Right.
I do think, though, you're not wrong to be thinking this, because they are teasing us they're teasing us with the idea that Omega is somehow force sensitive. So I don't blame you or anyone else for thinking that. It's just that I'm looking at what the evidence is based on what Hemlock said and what Asajj Ventress said. Jim, I don't know if you have another take on this Omega force sensitive or not.
Well, there's something special about the kid. And I find it hard to believe that it's always been simply she has blood that's compatible with the infusion of M count rich transfusions. I think there's something more to it. She's definitely unique and definitely special, especially in the eyes of the Kaminoans themselves, the ones who created her, like Nala Se. It has to be more than just the ability to take an M count transfusion, because that fact was even known about Omega until earlier this season. It seems like there's always been some sort of special quality to her that she's trying to discover, that we're trying to discover.
Oh, no, I got to stop you there, because on a technicality, because Nala Se was hiding Omega's blood, she must have known that Omega would have tested positive for this bonding agent. But like you were saying, we didn't know about it. We as the audience, you're right, didn't know about it. But Nala Se must have assumed that she was going to blow a positive on that test, or she wouldn't have hidden the blood.
Not necessarily, because when we catch up to Omega at the beginning of season 3, she reveals that they have taken her blood several times at that point. She says, "Why do you keep taking it?" So Nala Se probably ran it through that centrifuge at one point and just, disposed of the vial because of what it revealed. She may not have noticed or known until that moment, the first time she tested Omega's blood at Tantus. That's where I think the discovery happened.
Okay.
But again, there is some quality about Omega that makes her special, especially in the eyes of the Kaminoans. So, and Nala say. So it must be, there's got to be something to just how she was constructed that makes her a special case.
Is it possible
Let me
that...
follow up on...
Go ahead, Carrie. It's your call.
Oh, yeah, a follow-up on Jimmy Mack's observation, just because it triggered another thought I'd had earlier, and that was when Asajj Ventress found her, and you had the discussion about Asajj Ventress has her own ways of, tracking across the universe. It reminded me of Qui-Gon sending a message that, he detected a vergence in the Force. And, of course, nobody knew what vergence was, and that turned out to be Anakin. And so Anakin was born of the Force. And so he had a high midichlorian count, but what if Omega is special or unique, but maybe it's not, in other words, is she a vergence in another dimension of the Force? Who knows? But something, it's just all these foreshadowings. And then why all of these such, for me, direct comparisons to Luke Skywalker? So yeah, that's sort of what I'm seeing there. And, what does that mean? A long time ago, I don't know if you guys, I've looked for the old message boards, but they don't exist anymore. But back in the day, around the time of the prequel trilogy, and we had one thread on there called Dropped Lightsabers that we developed pretty good. I don't know. And so we were recounting all the times people dropped their lightsabers in the movies. And, Luke, I don't have to go into all that, but, it's like she dropped her comlink. She doesn't have a lightsaber. The point being, to win, you ultimately had to drop your lightsaber. You couldn't win with a lightsaber. You couldn't, the Jedi Council, the Jedi couldn't win. It had to be, without the lightsabers, without the cloak. Yoda's cloak, fell in the Senate chamber.
Yeah. The one difference I'll say though with Omega is, and I like this idea. I like these parallels. What you're pointing out, I don't know if it's something that the writers and the creatives are explicitly doing, but that's what happens when you have a rich mythology and universe like this. You can sort of pick and choose. With the comlink, though, likening it to the lightsaber, the comlink was sort of like it was a decoy in a way, because what she really thought was Crosshair was going to hit the ship with the tracker. So it was a contingency. Luke dropping his saber had no contingency. He was completely, for all intents and purposes, naked, right, in front of the Emperor. He had nothing left. So that I feel is a little bit different. Yeah. But no, I mean, you're absolutely justified, as Jim pointed out. Omega, before we knew about this M-count bonding thing, which it seems unlikely that that's the only thing that makes Omega special, considering how the lengths that Nala Se has gone to protect her. There's got to be something more. It can't just be that. So, great call, man. Thank you so much, Carrie. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Good stuff. Let's talk to another Patreon member here. Let's talk to Emily. Emily from Kansas. Hey, Emily.
Hey, guys. Chut-chut.
Chut-chut. What's going on?
Hey, so I had wanted to talk about a theory I had when, you guys were talking about how Crosshair missed the shot, and so there's no tracker, and we're not sure or not if Omega has a comm link or any way of communicating with the batch. Mm-hmm. But since we just saw a whole episode of Emery questioning her morals, maybe she will help Omega get the coordinates to the batch. Or I had also thought maybe Commander Cody, when he went AWOL, is actually a prisoner on Mount Tansis as well, and he will help Omega in some way, or maybe both of them.
Yeah, Cody's still out there. That's a good one. That's a loose thread. It's a loose clone thread. Yeah, right. Omega, because of the things that we're seeing with Emery Carr, I don't think that Omega is totally without prospect of having some allies or an ally once she gets to Mount Tantus. And who knows, Omega might be a gateway for Emery to learn more about Project Necromancer, which is the last straw. That could be the last straw for Emery. For Emery, if she gets a little bit more detail, which you think she would need in order to complete the experiments with Omega. I mean, what I feel like they would need to do is, if her blood's a match, are they going to drain her of all her blood? Because they're going to need to transfuse another clone with that. I don't know that Palpatine's necessarily going to want to inhabit the body of Omega.
I think they can clone her blood somehow, because they said we're going to replicate M-count rich blood. So when it comes to replication, I think that comes down to cloning science. I do predict, though, that Emery will turn on the Empire, and she will sabotage Project Necromancer, which would explain why they're still working on it in the era of the Mandalorian, when the Imperial Shadow Council gathered together and they revealed that Admiral Hux, Hux's father from the
Hux the Senior.
Yeah, that he was getting close to success with Project Necromancer. But we're looking at 20, 40, 50 years in the future. Right?
Before it finally pays off.
25, 30 years in the future.
Right.
So to know that Project Necromancer is a thing in this era, which is approximately 2 years after Revenge of the Sith, 18 years before the original trilogy, and all these funds are being diverted to it, and they have a mountain of a laboratory to work in, and the Emperor is very gung-ho on this whole thing. Why would they still be working on it decades in the future? I think it's because they're going to encounter a serious setback, and that could be the destruction of Mount Tantus itself, along with everything in it. And it could be Emery Carr who is responsible for that kind of what's the word I'm looking for? She's the one who's close enough to be able to make a difference. Just like Nala Day said, you have the power.
Maybe she has the one
power
to sacrifice.
Blow the whole thing up.
Maybe literally from within.
Yeah.
From within and end it all.
Sabotage it.
Yeah.
That's the word I was looking for. Sabotage. Or
sabotage.
Sabotage.
I don't say sabotage. I say sabotage.
You're sick of me.
Anything else? We're crossing the streams of fandoms here. Emily, anything else that you wanted to add to the convo? You've got the floor.
No, I don't think. But I do want to say, I feel like everyone's starting to like Crosshair now. But to all of those who have loved him since Clone Wars, I agree with you. He's always been my favorite. So I just wanted to say that.
Well, I'm glad it paid off for you. I'm glad that he redeemed himself. That's great. Team Crosshair. All right. Yeah. Thanks, Emily. Appreciate the call and the Patreon support.
She's a Crosshair Bobby Soxer.
Yeah. Guys, how about this? Thank goodness the HasLab never got completed for the Marauder. The Marauder RIP, home base of the batch for so long.
I always hate it when the hero ship gets destroyed. All those Starship Enterprises they ruined over the years. And of course, the Mandalorian ship, the Razor Crest, was destroyed. As we all have in these $500 orders to Hasbro for their HasLab vehicles. I don't think.
Hey, but look at the. You know what? Look at Jabba's sail barge. It was a huge success for the HasLab. The difference is everyone knew going into that ship met its demise. With the Crest, we thought maybe we had a good 2, 3, 4 more seasons with that ship, and no, it wasn't to be. I mean, it was that. I think that campaign got funded. Then the ship blew up on the show before the thing even shipped out to customers. That was something.
That was just a matter of time before that ship from Rebels, the Ghost, gets destroyed into a bunch of million little bits. Turtle Wars was wondering if Gonky was on board the ship.
No,
but
he was
not. Wrecker did grab him. Yes. They were on the ramp. Wrecker saw the explosive on the side of the ship, and he was able to get him out of there just in time.
Yeah,
I would have let the power
himself
droid
on top of Gonky.
I mean, Gonky, really? I mean, for Gonky?
He did.
It's probably the best friend Wrecker ever had. Gonky.
Right.
And there was that one night when they got intimate, when they were on the ship alone.
All right.
Hey, we know it happens in Star Wars. Thank you, Solo, a perverted Star Wars story.
Don't knock it till you try it. Hey, how about this little tidbit that we got at the end of the first episode about Sid, when the Clone X is saying the Trandoshan's intel paid off. I think he tuned her up a little bit to get that information out of her. I don't think he came by with money, any credits to offer her. I think they tuned. I like to think they tuned her up a bit.
He said he extracted the information from her.
Right.
Which doesn't mean she just, sat down and they had a cup of coffee and talked about it. Yeah, he probably smacked her around a little bit. Or, we know Sid, though. The second this guy walks into a place looking for information, she's singing like a canary. Sid only cares about one thing, herself.
Right.
And, it's a shame we didn't get to see that. It's not like I've missed the character or anything, but that seems like a good, we never really got any solid closure with the character. And I think her getting, a shakedown from a Clone X, whatever he's called, I think that would have been kind of satisfying a little bit. Hearing Rhea Perlman screaming for her life. I think that would be hilarious.
Yeah. This was a pretty poignant moment here, especially when we know what happens later in the episode to Pabu. Though I got to confess, I was expecting even more destruction, although it seems like they got hit pretty hard there on Pabu. But the raid on Pabu, it was pretty intense. But this was a poignant moment where Omega leaves 2 of her most prized possessions there on Pabu, not knowing that she's ever going to be back there. But it was like she wanted to leave some sort of a marker or a monument, and sort of, in her way, I think it was claiming it. She says it was the closest thing to a home she ever had, and so it was sort of claiming it as her home. So, but I thought it was a poignant moment. And what are those 2 things? Her stuffed animal that she had, or whatever this is. Is it a Tuca doll, or?
Yeah, I think so.
And then, and even more poignantly, you've got Tech's glasses.
Yeah.
And we know how much that must have meant to her.
A lot of people think that's instant foreshadowing for Tech's return from the grave. And it might be just something to keep Tech in our minds right before they reveal that clone trooper, that X-trooper, or whatever he's called, is Tech. I don't want it. I don't see it. I don't think it's going to happen. It would be nice if they just left it enough alone and just, because it raises the stakes for the story. And if you have him miraculously survive, then that lowers the stakes for the Bad Batch, who I believe all of them are doomed.
That's what I was going to say. I think they're all going to get it. Not that I'm hoping for that, but I just think that's the way the stories the story's going. And I don't think that Filoni wants to be known as the guy that can't let his characters die. I don't think that's going to work out for him. And
now, there's other cooks in the kitchen than Dave Filoni when you're dealing with Lucasfilm and the Disney Corporation.
yeah.
There's always people with voices at the table who shouldn't be talking. So it interferes with the creative process. Even for a guy like Dave Filoni, he has to put up with it.
Yeah.
So it's, but I think for dramatic purposes, we're winding the entire series down. I think it would be really disappointing if Tech somehow returned and they were able to cure him of his brainwashing or whatever.
Well, that's the
or
other
he suddenly
thing.
shows up at this opportunity.
He just becomes another Crosshair character? Is that, I mean, what's the point of that?
Right, Crosshair's already one of them. Right, yeah.
You know, well, now we have another one of the batch that turned heel. And so we're going to wait for their redemption. Like, it's just, I think it takes away from Crosshair's arc, and I think it takes away from the character of Tech, who his sacrifice has to mean something.
And you have a member of the Bad Batch, Echo, who's already defied death. He's a character that was thought of as dead and gone, and then he returned as a Borg. But now,
Totally.
I don't want to see some similar transformation with the character of Tech. And I hope that was just a poignant tribute to sort of give Tech a little bit of the honor that he deserved. I mean, he didn't really receive any sort of memorial service or funeral or anything like that. They haven't done anything official to acknowledge his passing. So this is about as close as you get.
Right.
Then with the addition of the little stuffed animal, it's a indication to the viewer that Omega has matured to a degree where she doesn't need the security of a stuffed animal anymore. She's grown up a little bit.
Giving up childish things, as they say. Well, hey, folks, we have a really special treat. Joining us on the phone right now is the governor himself, the voice of Governor Tarkin. What an honor, Stephen Stanton, and a longtime friend of Rebel Force Radio. Stephen, thanks so much for calling in. We are honored by your presence.
Hey, happy anniversary, Jason and Jimmy Mac.
Anniversary.
Is it an anniversary?
Jim,
is it our anniversary already? You cad.
Well,
and you gave me nothing.
Well, I mean, the anniversary I'm talking about is me calling in with you guys all those years ago, 13 years ago now.
Is that right?
First episode of Tarkin's appearance in the Clone Wars, the Citadel.
So it's collectively
it was my first interview.
Oh my gosh! Well, thank you very much for remembering.
My first Star Wars interview.
Oh wow,
that's amazing.
That's
amazing.
Yeah,
and it's all because you thought we were being a little harsh on you for saying you weren't trilling your R's enough as Tarkin. We love that Rebel Force Radio kind of sound,
Like we're one to give this guy any tips, but It's been a great 13 years of getting to know you and all the folks there at Stephen Stanton Inc. At the risk of sounding like we're gushing, I mean, I got up this morning and was texting Mac and some of the others on our little Jedi Council saying this is some of the best Star Wars I think since the second season of Mandalorian, this Bad Batch season 3. I had, like we all do as fans of our favorite franchises, nitpicks here and there and past seasons, but I don't know, as Stephen, as you've been watching it, and you haven't been part of the entire season, how are you feeling about this this series wrapping up and the momentum that it's had so far this season? I know you know more than you can probably say, but if you were like us, just pedestrians watching this each week, what do you think?
Well, I do have a slightly different perspective than you guys, but from the standpoint of being in the audience, it's one thing to have the script in front of you and read it and record it. It's another thing to sit down and watch it and see what
Brad and Jennifer and, Keith Kellogg and Joel Aaron and everybody else, put into the show, and you see the episode on screen, and it's some of the best animation I've seen come out of Lucasfilm animation, to date, and everything from cinematography to, just the storylines. And I thought this week in particular was really, really intense. I thought this was getting on the same sort of level as, the evil that we see the Empire, in Andor, that kind of level. Is really shocking to see the level of viciousness that they portrayed on the screen.
No, this certainly stands up with the best episodes of the Clone Wars, and like you say, animation wise, I just don't think there's anything like it anywhere visually.
Yes,
very true. I agree with you guys. It's been a long road. I started on the Clone Wars. I started with Tarkin. I first recorded him back in 2010. That's like 14 years ago now. And then the first episodes of the Clone Wars as Masameda back in, I think, 2009. And to watch the evolution of the animation from Lucasfilm from that time period to now, it's just phenomenal. It's amazing.
And of course, let's not forget Moralo Eval. If we're going to start running down your roster of Star Wars characters, we can never forget good old Uncle Moralo. Give him our best, will you?
Well, I will. There's been a lot of people that asked, when Moralo is going to show up again, or Meeber or any of those guys. I really don't know. A lot of this is kind of, this is sort of an end of an era for me. A lot of this is coming to a close with the end of the Bad Batch. So I really appreciate,
I hope
everybody.
That's not true. I get what you're saying, but as a fan, I hope it's not true, because Bad Batch and like the Clone Wars before it, just has given us so many incredible moments as fans. I don't want to see, I liken it to, the Bruce Timm era of Batman, the New Adventures of Batman, and going into Justice League. It was just this incredible epoch of great story, consistency in the animation. I don't want to see it end, just like I didn't want to see that end either.
Well, there's always new stories getting ready to be told and new characters that need to come into play. We, as much as we love our original trilogy characters and the prequel trilogy characters, we've got to make room for the new characters, even if they come from an older time period than what we've seen so far. But so yeah, it's been a great, it's been a great almost couple decades here for me, working for Lucasfilm, going all the way back to the video games back in 2005, so it's wonderful to portray these characters. And once this season is over with the Bad Batch, let's talk again, because I know there's going to be some stuff that you guys will want to ask me, and there's some stuff I want to tell you about.
Oh, good.
Ooh.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's a nice tease. Something to look forward to. But in terms of this episode alone, when we get that hologram from Tarkin as he's talking to Hemlock, we're dealing with a really rather irritated Tarkin. He's sort of scolding almost. And usually when we see Tarkin, he's kind of cool and collected and in control. Here he almost seems like he's going to lose his temper a little bit. And when I look back at the performance from Peter Cushing in A New Hope, there's really only one moment where I feel like he's sort of losing his cool. And that's when he's interrogating Leia right before they blow up Alderaan. And he wants to know, name the system. Is that particular moment from Peter Cushing's portrayal of the character, is that moment like a hot spot for you where you can watch that and sort of get yourself into the mode of an irritated Tarkin?
Yeah, I think a lot of times when directors are looking for a different angle on Tarkin, that's one of the scenes that they will reference when they say, we want him to be this angry or this upset or this, villainous. That's kind of like like you said, that's the hot point in Cushing's portrayal, and it gets referenced a lot. So it is a jumping off point every now and again. And also, I kind of like look at it from the standpoint in this particular scene, as you saw in Rogue One, Tarkin does not like to be left out of the equation, especially when there's something that can where he can jump on board and take credit for it, and move forward in the ranks and get closer to the Emperor. And also, I always look back. I know you guys have heard me talk about this before, but the Tarkin novel is a big reference book for me because it has a lot of internal dialogue with Tarkin and also how he responds to the people around him. So you get to know his inner thoughts. So I kind of rely on some of the writing from that to give me an idea of places to go with it that, may not have been on screen already, but are there in the canon.
Are there any other films from Peter Cushing's career that you tap into to maybe get a different edge for Tarkin based on his performance of an entirely different character?
Oh, sure. I have a cabinet full of Peter Cushing's films from the UK, everything from Sherlock Holmes to some of his television work. And, depending on the age that I'm playing Tarkin, whether it's like the young Captain Tarkin as opposed to, Grand Moff or Admiral or whatever, I'll kind of like, look at some of those things as a refresher, a reminder of, the kinds of things that he's done. Cushing is known so much for his horror stuff, but even within the horror films, some of his, especially the anthology films, he has some very comedic moments that he's done. He's also has some really, really heartfelt stuff that will just absolutely bring you to tears. Not that Tarkin has ever been called upon to do that, but it kind of shows you, it keeps me in mind. I keep that in mind to remind myself that it's not just a one-note character. He's not just, you may fire when ready kind of thing. There's a lot more to the character to that. So we'll always try to bring something in, no matter how small the scene, just like the short sequence we had this week, something in there that, brings a new angle to the character that maybe we haven't seen before.
There's a lot of things that George Lucas was and is incredible at, obviously storytelling, creating universes, but he is damn good at casting, because when you think about just take someone like Peter Cushing that has relatively limited screen time, if you add up all the minutes that he's on the screen in that film, but damn, is every scene memorable, the way he phrases every line. And then, of course, that creates a tall order for you guys who come in after these actors. Sometimes they've passed away in the case of Peter Cushing, and you have to recreate that charisma, the magnetism, and just the magic that they possess that made them so memorable.
Yeah, and when you're, doing, especially, the longer episodes we've had, like back when they were doing the Citadel, you kind of get into, at least I do, kind of get into a zone where you're just like, I see the images of the script through the eyes of that particular character. So that's why I just stay in the mode of that character the whole time that I'm doing him. So, it makes it more believable for me. And, what's funny is that you mentioned George Lucas. The story goes that originally he had Cushing in mind to do the Kenobi role. And then when he got Alec Guinness, he asked him to do Grand Moff Tarkin. But from what I've read and over the years, that he was his original choice for Kenobi. Would have been a very different film if Cushing would have played that role.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Not that he couldn't have. Like I said, he has a softer, more emotional side, but it would have been a very different film.
Yeah.
What would have been like if Dave Prowse played Chewbacca and Peter Mayhew played Darth Vader,
right?
And Mark Hamill played Han, and Harrison Ford played
all right,
R2.
Disney Plus. There's the What If series that you can give us right
there.
There
you go.
Well, that's the What If.
Let's mix it up. Hey, back to Cushing. Is there any sort of film role that you look at and you say, oh, he's being the most Tarkin in this role? Which role outside of Star Wars was Peter Cushing's most Tarkin-ish role?
I would say that it would be his Sherlock Holmes roles, because Holmes is, he considers himself the smartest person in the room. He rubs people the wrong way. He's not very likable. It's very much the way Tarkin was when he was first introduced in the Citadel trilogy, because, the Jedi were working with him, but nobody really liked him. And they're like, God, this guy, he's just like, he's just making, the hair on the back of my neck stand up. You could tell he was getting on everyone's nerves. He was bantering with, I was going to say with Matt Lanter, with Anakin, and with younger Kenobi. He was just, but they had to keep working with him. Ahsoka Tano, especially, they did not get along at all. And the whole trial of Ahsoka in season 5 of the Clone Wars, you could really tell them they were butting heads. You could tell she just wanted to kill the guy right there. And when we recorded that, I was positioned in the room where I could look right across at Ashley Eckstein, so I could look up from the script and, kind of like shoot lightning bolts at her, so that our characters could really just kind of go after each other and just kind of bring some more realism into it. It always helps when you can play it out as much as you can, even though you're just working from a script.
Good point to remind us that much of a lot of Ahsoka's destiny, where we see her ending up, even in the current series, is the seeds that Tarkin planted all those years before. I mean, he is responsible for her inevitable falling out with the Jedi. That's for sure.
Did you get to record in the studio with Jimmy Simpson, the voice of Hemlock? Did you guys record together and play off of each other at all?
No, I didn't. I did not.
Is that, Stephen, something
that's been going on for me for a long time?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, because, a hallmark of the Clone Wars was what you were just describing of the actors, the ensemble being there in the studio together. Is that not happening just because of just the way the industry's changed and technology making it easier for people to do this type of stuff from their homes? Or is that just, unique to, say, the way Lucasfilm Animation is doing it? Is it just curious if that's the new environment for voiceover work?
It's a combination of factors. When you're talking about the Clone Wars, that final group of episodes with the trial of Ahsoka, that very last episode that we did for that season, there were, I think, 11 of us in the room together, which was the biggest cast we'd ever had, in the room recording together at once. I'd never seen it any larger than that. But then when we got into doing Rebels, it was kind of mixed. It really depended on everyone's schedule. There were some times when I was doing AP5 where it was just me and Dave Filoni and Henry Gilroy and, the engineering crew. And I didn't have any other actors with me. So, it really just depended on everyone's schedule. And then, of course, COVID hit and we had the lockdown and everybody had to figure out a way to record from home. So a lot of that is carried over from that time period, and because of that, everyone is very used to recording remotely. So you don't need to necessarily come, drive an hour out to the studio in San Fernando Valley,
sure,
and do one scene and then come back home. You can do it all from, and I've had a home studio since around 2008, something like that. I've had it for a long, long time.
Oh, I'm sure the efficiency and the convenience and all of that. Yeah, certainly. And because you have had, when it comes to your Clone Wars castmates, you've had all that time in the studio. So, getting together or recording with a D. Bradley Baker or someone like that, you've already had that opportunity to be there with them. So you probably get to know, and you can almost picture or hear the way that D or Matt or somebody is delivering a line.
Well, yeah, and also, even though we're filming, doing remotely, many times, like I said, depending on everyone's schedule, they can get a whole group of people together.
You're on at the same time, like a big Zoom call, for lack of a better word.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
They have the technology to do that now very easily. And what you were saying though about, like, even if they're not there, this has been a long sort of tradition in voiceover for many, many years. It's like you don't necessarily know what the other actor is going to do. So a lot of times you will record lines in anticipation of how the other person may do it. so that it gives the director and the editor options as to how they can cut the scene together, because the dialogue is varied enough that the conversation can go in many different directions emotionally.
Awesome. Well, Mac, if you're trying to talk to us, we can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There we go.
That's what makes the whole Clone Wars era so special is that they had the full cast in the studio. When you're at home recording, who's giving you direction?
The same directors that would be giving me direction if I was in studio. It's just all
yeah, I
been
get
done
that,
remotely.
but it's not the specific.
Connected.
It's not the episodic directors, though, is it? Or is it Jennifer Corbett, the showrunner? Who's in there?
Yeah, it would be whoever is assigned to that particular series. So it's either somebody
the actual episodic director then. Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. That's just kind of a geeky behind the scenes thing I was interested in. So.
Yeah. Well, look, you guys have a whole other episode you need to talk about with everyone, so I don't want to hog all the time here. So I'm going to bow out here and let you guys get back to it.
Well, thanks for calling, and thanks for the tease, and we definitely want to catch up with you after the big May the 4th weekend and the finale of The Bad Batch that week. We'll definitely want to catch up with you and break it down.
You got it. Sounds good.
All right. Thank you, Stephen.
Thanks so much for calling, Stephen. Give our best to Dutch and Miss Kathy and Rick Fitz and the whole gang over there. What a crew. What a great crew.
I'll do that.
All right, pal. Thanks so much.
Okay.
All right. Have a great one.
All right. Take care.
All right. Very cool. Well, it's not every day you get treated on the RFR after show with a real live member of the cast. We did get some super chats that came in, so thank you, Stephen, for that. Here's Scott, St. Louis, says, happy anniversary, Steve and RFR. Thank you for bringing us Uncle Morallo, President Bush, Sure Sean, and Walk into the show. Great show, 30 Days to Bristol, that's right. And if you're unfamiliar with that, because we do have a lot of new listeners, check it out. Go through Rebel Force Radio, the website, and do some of those searches. I think you might find, if you do Uncle Morallo in there, I think you'll get some episodes that pop up, and you can hear some of the wackiness of those days. Always fun time.
Those were wacky days. Oh
when,
my God.
Stephen was around the old book club. Here's Aiden. Aiden says, chut, love listening every week. Didn't get to call in last week, but wanted to share a thought about last week's ep. Didn't want to go off topic. Okay. All right, Aiden. Fair enough. Well, give us a call. And don't worry about going off topic. We'll correct you.
Week is, we do talk about the full season. So just because we're focusing on one specific episode, I think any Bad Batch episode is worthy of discussion here on the after show.
For sure.
So, especially as we approach the 2-hour mark.
And here's N64 Rescue says, long live Jimmy, Jason, and RFR. Well, that's very nice of you to say. Long live you too. Jim, what did you make of this? This was sort of a throwaway thing during the Tarkin. I think it was during the Tarkin scene with Hemlock. But we saw this computer scan of what looks to be some sort of armor that doesn't look familiar to me. That doesn't look like is that the Clone X?
Yes.
That is the Clone X. See, it's in shadow all the time, so I can't get a good look at it. So it's going to look different when you see it on. Okay, so that is Clone X. All right. So Hemlock was looking at his Clone X there. So we see Pabu take it on the chin, like we expected that they were going to be kind of sacrificed, and Omega makes the decision that she can't let this destruction go on. It's the only home she's ever had. It's her fault. The Empire's after her. The only thing that's going to stop their attack is if she gives herself up. There's a contingency plan. That falls through. As far as we know, that's fallen through, though we're speculating that maybe she had another trick up her sleeve. Maybe she and Crosshair, or maybe just she herself, or maybe she's SOL, and it's going to be somebody like an Emery or Cody or someone that's going to come to the rescue there at Mount Tantus. So we where are we at the end of this? Bad Batch are somewhat defeated. Omega is captured. Pabu is in ruin, is ablaze. It's on fire. Where do you see them dusting themselves off and going when we resume next week? It can't be like, Wrecker just, I don't know, maybe it'll be like, there's Wrecker and he's helping rebuild the town and, everybody's working together. Or is the mayor going to be like, you know what, you guys are bringing way too much heat on us. Why don't you just get out of here? Because this was pretty intense. And I don't know that I would blame the mayor for that.
No. Shep.
Yeah,
Mayor Shep. Time for you boys to find another island to destroy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you've done enough around here. I mean, their livelihood has been destroyed. Their ships and piers have all been set afire. I think the first thing that these guys should do, if I was Hunter, I would be calling out to Echo and Rex, and I'd say, guys, we need some help. We need a ship.
Right. I forget. They need a ship.
Yeah. I mean, they have that gunship that Hunter was able to. I think he took over. That's kind of. I'm sort of forgetting what happened with that. Crosshair shot the pilot, and so then Hunter was able to fly it and safely land it. I'm assuming.
No. The Clone X shot the pilot. The pilot then crashes, and that's what causes.
Crosshair shot the pilot.
Clone X shot the pilot.
Oh, am I shoot.
Clone X shot his own man because Hunter, he was like, I can't shake him. He's coming up on me. Like Hunter's about to take over the ship. So Clone X, with no loyalty, pops the pilot, which causes him to lose control. And then Hunter falls off and into the water.
Oh, that's right. It crashed in the ocean. Right. Yeah. And we see Hunter then swimming, presumably to safety.
So they don't have a ship. I was thinking of the ship that Crosshair steals with Omega when they broke out of Mount Tantus, but that ship's no longer around.
I feel like I was watching an entirely different show. The way I'm seeing it, it's Crosshair shooting the pilot. Wow, that's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah. I watched it twice. So yeah, the first call I would make would be to Rex. I'd say, get over here now. We are in deep, what. I can't wake up Wrecker. The only one I'm here to hang out with is Crosshair, and he's creepy as hell. You gotta get me some more clones. I need some more clones ASAP and a ship. And and then they just sit and they wait for Omega, who is going to be the one to reach out to them.
Yeah, that's all they can do.
That's right. That's all they can do. I still believe she smuggled another comlink with her, and the first was just a decoy. She has another one on her, and she will use it to contact the batch. They'll get the coordinates and they'll head out there. But it's still an uphill climb, and they will need Rex and whatever sort of militia he was able to put together of disenfranchised clones. So I want to see that happening. Oh, there's that trooper getting shot.
Right. So he's getting shot, and there's Hunter hanging from the side of it. And it was
so dark.
It was.
Oh yeah. Okay, I see it now.
It was Clone X that did the shooting. We've got one more call we want to get to because he's been hanging on. And he's a Patreon, so we want to get to Hanky from Kansas. We'll go ahead and talk to you, Hanky. You got to follow Stephen Stanton, Hanky.
Hey, oh boy!
Hey,
thanks for telling me that.
Yeah, sure. No pressure. No pressure.
Oh yeah, no pressure at all. No, I had left a super chat. I was going to talk about last week's episode, but I was a little anxious. I didn't want to go off topic, but I don't think it was talked about, but I mentioned to Tyler that the part when Ventress is taming, you remind me that you called it the turtle puss, but when she was taming the turtle puss, I was kind of, it reminded me in Dark Disciple when she was helping Quinlan use the Force on, I don't remember what creature it was, but the underwater creature, and then he later on killed it. But I was hoping for maybe like flashbacks or maybe hearing voices when she was using the Force on it. Just kind of an observation I made.
To really call back something from the book. And yeah, that would have cemented it.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of neat.
Firmly in canon if it needs it. Disney is still, and Lucasfilm still claiming that stuff is canon. So yeah, I guess it would have given it a little bit more validity, I suppose.
In this story, though, they really want to keep it focused on the Bad Batch. They didn't seem to be interested in telling any sort of giving you any insight into Ventress's story or really how she survived. They claim we'll learn it, how she defies death in the book Dark Disciple, where she clearly died at the hands of Count Dooku's Force lightning, and then she was given sort of a burial at sea. It's tough to come back from something like that. And according to Jennifer Corbett, who's the showrunner for The Bad Batch, we'll be getting that explanation in some sort of future content. So it doesn't sound like it'll be a future episode of The Bad Batch. Who knows if it's going to be an episode of anything? It could end up in a comic book or a novel or another novel. It almost makes sense for them to tell the story of how she defied death in a novel, because the story of her death was told in a novel. And I like when they keep those type of threads exclusive to the particular medium in which they originated from. Because then if you start crossing the streams of novels and TV shows, even though they desire for everything to be canon, it gets hard on the viewer when you start throwing in characters from left field. It just seems to promote more questions than it answers in the end, because a lot of people be saying, Quinlan Voss, wasn't he a Jedi? How did they hook up? It's almost like you need a whole episode to explain just that element of her past, when the show isn't about Ventress, it's about the Bad Batch, and the focus has to remain there. So it gets to be a slippery slope after a while, especially when you're dealing with seasons that are only 15 episodes long. Maybe if we had a good solid 24 episode season like the old Clone Wars used to do, you can explore those things a little bit more.
Yeah.
Have episodes feature just Ventress, but you can't do that with the Bad Batch, especially as we're in the second half of the final season. It just would dilute the story too much, I think. But I do believe we'll get that answer, and it'll probably come in a novel or something. That's my guess.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, Hanky. Appreciate the call. Wow, I think that's probably... Oh, wait a minute. Here's Sal B. Crum. Last minute, we're going to get it here. Does Sid get dealt with on screen? I was surprised to see the callback to her, and she's still selling out the batch. Oh, yeah. Still selling out the batch. No, we don't see it on screen. We do see Fee on screen, because Clone X is able to get the coordinates of Pabu from Fee's ship, but we don't see Fee showing back up on Pabu. We never see her reaction to the events that take place. So that's probably going to happen in a future episode, maybe the next episode. Fee's back and she's like, "Where's my house?"
Well, maybe that is if a return to Pabu is in the cards, which I don't know if it is. Maybe last scene of the last episode, whoever survives the raid on Mount Tantus will retire on the island on Pabu. But I don't know. I think we might be done with Pabu.
Maybe.
That's right, Jason. No more Shep. No more Leanna.
No more John David coming in here last minute. That scan isn't the Clone X that's been on the Batch's tail. That's a different clone operative. Oh, so the one on the scanner that I showed. I don't know. I can't tell. But John's saying that it's not the same Clone X. And what is Hemlock seeing at the start of episode 10? I know what moment you're talking about. I think I might have a screen cap from that. From that moment, he is staring because he's in this thing that looks a little bit. Yeah, this room right here. Unless this is just a different angle that we're not used to seeing that enters into the secret the room with all the kids. Yeah, so this is
they're outside.
This is going in. Well, this is a different scene, but this is Hemlock and Emery going into the vault where we meet the children. But I don't think that's the same thing as this.
No, that's not the vault. Because doesn't Emery approach him while he's in this room? And if that's the case, then she's never been allowed to. Yeah, this has to be.
Yeah.
He's doing something in there.
He sure is.
Yeah, maybe that's just a bathroom. He's taking a leak.
It reminds me a little bit of when in Rogue One when Krennic is waiting for Vader, and Vader's in the back the tank, and there's all that. Yeah, I don't know what that is, but it's a good observation. Eric from Phoenix, Emery will help Omega contact the Bad Batch. Bad Batch will join up with Rex. Echo and clone deserters to attack Tantus. Saw Gerrera's team helps too. Wow, this is going to be Avengers Unite. Saw comes back. Vader comes in to save the day and takes out the Bad Batch, but Rex escapes with Omega. Wow,
he left out something very important. Vader comes in while riding the Zillo Beast and takes out the Bad. I mean, come on, we got to tie this all up somehow.
All the loose ends need to get tied up.
Yeah, Zillo Beast. Is Zillo Beast going to be a thing that just gets thrown at us in every animated Star Wars show, and we never really find out what the whole deal is with that thing? And
well, Palpatine was so interested in that Zillo Beast, so who knows? Maybe he's going to try to combine or clone it and possess its body. I don't know.
Boy, if we could get a payoff for that story, because that all started, in 2009 with the very first Zillo, maybe 2010, the very first Zillo Beast appearance. And then, of course, he showed up last year, or a Zillo Beast showed up last year in the Bad Batch. And there's still more Zillo to be told. So grab your pillow. I got a bedtime story about the Zillo. That's what I told my kids when they were little. Kids had nightmares
for weeks. Turtle Wars, $10. Thank you very much, Turtle Wars. And Trevor, also thank you. That Clone X sounds a lot like Cross. Yeah, they do. The clone, I'm not going to deny it. There is some similarities in the vocal delivery there, and it's got to be done on purpose. I don't know why. We can all speculate. I don't think they're clones of Crosshair, but anything and everything is possible, including wrapping up Bad Batch here. Hit the music. All right. There we go. I was trying to get John off the screen. I couldn't get John off. Go away, John.
Hey, don't say that. Jeez. Yikes. I mean, listen, we're only here to host a show, and that's it. Okay? I don't know what you're doing on the side over there.
All right. Well, I'm about to wrap this up, this week's episode of the Bad Batch After Show. I want to thank everybody for being here, for the great phone calls, for the super chats, the regular chats, the comments, all of it. You guys just make this so much fun for us and for everybody. So thank you. Also, huge thank you to Stephen Stanton for taking the time out and giving us a ring and his perspective on being in this episode. And a little tidbit for maybe the future. It sounds to me, Jim, you didn't come out and say it, but perhaps this isn't the last time we're going to see Tarkin in Bad Batch Season 3. There might be more.
Oh, I think so. Yeah. I think I could read between those lines. And who says that's it for Tarkin? You know, there is that trailer for these Tales of the Empire shorts. And when I think of the Empire, I think of good old GMT, Grand Moff Tarkin. So I don't know if Mr. Stanton is trying to throw us off any scent or anything, but we're just focused on the Bad Batch. And you're right, Jason. I do believe we'll see more Tarkin before this season and this series wraps up for good.
Also, huge thanks to Tyler Page, our great call screener. Thank you, Tyler. Great calls this week. Balancing it all quite well, making sure that we get the top tier, like Stephen Stanton calling in. Is there anything that we missed? This was 2 episodes. There was a lot to cover. Anything we didn't catch?
I don't know if there's anything you didn't catch, because you guys dug into stuff that I didn't think of. A lot of stuff I didn't think of. But I have a couple of agreements and one question for you, or one point, if you're open to that.
Please.
I think Emery turning against the Empire makes a lot of sense. I think she's going to fill that role as Tech. I think that's alluded to with her glasses. That's the only reason I have for that.
She's going to become a Bad Batcher.
I think so. I think that's in the cards, maybe.
Look at those glasses.
The little kid makes that comment to her. Love your glasses.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I think Omega is Force sensitive, and you pointed out earlier. They've been teasing it. I'm totally just going to take that as fact at this point. I don't know. I hope they're not just teasing it, because they're laying it on so thick.
Oh, believe it.
And the last thing is, we see Cad Bane drop that kid off. I think he's at Tantus when he drops that kid off. So is the location of Tantus more well known? No, he's not.
No, he's clearly, that's clearly a space station above in orbit of Coruscant. That's where that was. That wasn't.
Well, I was half in.
The interiors, they all look the same. The very standard uniform Imperial interiors. But and I can see how you think it. But as you see their ship approach with Emery Carr on board, you see that it's a space station clearly in orbit around Coruscant.
Yeah. See, you miss a second, you miss everything.
Yeah, Blake.
Hey, I'm the guy who thought Crosshair shot that pilot. So what do I know? I do know it was Coruscant, though, not Tantus.
All right. And do you think Tarkin's going to kill a Hemlock at some point?
Ooh. I didn't until now. Now I'm kind of thinking that's a possibility.
All right. That's my last question. So.
And I would love to see Tarkin do it himself. I want to see this guy get some blood on his hands, as opposed to hiding behind the stormtroopers or whoever, or Darth Vader. Let's see Tarkin get some blood on his hands for once and for all.
Agreed. All right, Tyler, thank you. We'll see you next week, buddy.
Thanks, guys.
And that just leads us to one last thing, and that is Jimmy Mac's final thoughts.
All right, final thoughts on a Bad Batch double feature, Identity Crisis and Point of No Return. I'm sure a lot of people are emailing me right now telling me about all the time Tarkin actually did get blood on his hands. They'll probably come up with some in the Citadel arc. Whatever. A couple things I observed throughout these episodes, which both I thought were great. Cad Bane, when he does make that transfer aboard that Coruscant space station, they show his ship, and that ship is called the Justifier. The Justifier was created for an actual Clone Wars episode that never aired. That episode featuring Cad Bane versus Boba Fett. And little clips of that has been shown, animatics, during the Untold Clone Wars panel at Star Wars Celebration 2017 maybe it wasn't. What year was that one? I think it was 2017, or maybe it was the one in Anaheim in 2015. You can see the whole panel on YouTube. And I was just scrubbing through it today, as a matter of fact. And during that panel, Dave Filoni showed off concept art for Cad Bane's ship, the Justifier. And during the thing, he's like, yeah, it's too bad you guys aren't ever going to get a chance to see it, because at this point, Clone Wars had been canceled. So here we're seeing it. And it did debut in the Bad Batch Season 1 episode, Bounty Lost, which featured Cad. But at that point, I didn't realize it was the Justifier, and that's the name of the ship. And when I was watching today's episode with the descriptive audio track running, it was identified as the Justifier. And I was thinking to myself, I think that's that ship that was supposed to be in Clone Wars. But as it turns out, it was actually Cad Bane's ship in Season 1 of the Bad Batch. So that's just a little point of trivia that I was interested in. I also thought it was cool that when Fee was loading the droid into her ship, she was doing it via a tube that was similar to how R2 was loaded into the Sandcrawler in A New Hope. And I don't think we seen that in Star Wars since A New Hope? That wacky way of loading droids into a ship through a vacuum tube that comes down. I always thought that was just one of the more fun visuals of the original trilogy. The super clone, he parks his ship in the same, quote, hidden cave on Pabu where Asajj parked her ship just last week. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure you can just, punch up this cave on Spot Hero and park there anytime you want. It doesn't seem so hidden to me. Visually, the Imperial raid on Pabu reminded me of the First Order raid on Kijimi in The Rise of Skywalker. I just felt like there was this very similar vibe in the way that they were going door to door, pulling citizens out of their homes, and stormtroopers marching up and down the streets. Finally, Omega wants to be captured so they can discover the coordinates of Tantus. She turns herself over, gets scanned, comlink found. She surrenders it, but no more scanning. They left a whole bunch of Omega unscanned. So I think that kid has another comlink. Puff a pig, not in this episode.
Oh, I even had it on a loop.
Did I out-talk the music?
You out-talked
I love when
music.
I out-talk the music.
I had it on a loop, but it didn't loop.
I even out-talked the loop. The loop gave up.
It did.
The loop is like he's still giving final thoughts? Oh, my God.
All right. Well, that'll wrap things up for us this week. We will be back next week with not just the Bad Batch after show on Wednesday, 9:00 p.m. Eastern, but we'll have the weekly Rebel Force Radio podcast available as well. That'll drop on Saturday. So there's
next week, but not this week.
But not this week.
RFR this week.
No regular RFR this week. So you're just going to have to check out all the extras over there on Patreon. So, and if you haven't joined, you can do so at rebelforceradio.com. Just click on the Patreon banner or go directly through patreon.com/rebelforceradio. There is more content than you can possibly consume, I think, between now and the next Bad Batch after show. Also, check out our YouTube page, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Follow us on the socials, the Instagram, the X, the Facebook, all that good stuff. Great community of Star Wars fans, not just on Patreon, but also on the official Rebel Force Radio group. So make sure you check that out. I think that's going to do it. We'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. For Rebel Force Radio, until next time, I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember,
the Force will be with you, always.